should know. I have never really liked you at all. I cannot hide it anymore. I've been thinking about the future, trying to forget about the past. So many ways that I could change for the better. Don't
This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, it's for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Sarah, Bad Girl, Zio, Pinto, my lovely, Jenny Jen, True Crime Addict, Pinto again, Rubber Ramada, Cara, Joy. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Today, I wanted to talk about a case that I have been looking into for a long time. Okay. Sorry. I have been looking into this case for a long time, and what got me into it is this 911 call I'm going to play first. They seem to think they have the Long Island serial killer, Rex Heuermann. I don't know if you feel like he did it or not. I think that he did it. He's done some questionable things. We're going to go back to where this started. A person to go to for lots of information on this case, if you're interested, is Grizzly True Crime. She's done a lot of videos on this. I wanted to share it with you guys just in case you don't know about it. And if you do, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on this case. I like to talk about this case. I'm really interested in it. We will start with this, and it's
State police. Yeah, there's somebody asking.
Okay, let me I guess give you a little bit of background first because I know this case. This is from Court TV, and it's titled Long Island Serial Murker. And then this is the Shannon Gilbert 911 calls released. Shannon Gilbert was a lady of the night, and she had a friend with her that took her to a place, to a party where she was supposed to make some money. While at this party, something happened. She got some rugs, and either some that she chose to do or some that were put in her drink. At some point, she freaks out, okay? And the guy that brings her is driving around trying to find her, and she's trying to run away from him because she thinks that he brought her there to possibly get unalived, and she ends up unalived. So we're going to listen to the 911 call. At this point, she's freaking out. She has left the house where the party was happening. She is running for her life. And she is on some rugs. So she doesn't know a lot about where she's at or what's going on. It's dark. It's the middle of the night. Very scary. So I'm going to play this, and I'll drop the link just in case anybody wants to come up.
Sorry. I'm sorry? There's somebody asking. State police. Yeah, there's somebody asking me. I'm sorry? There's somebody asking me. Where are you? There's somebody asking me.
What's the matter? Are you okay?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me? Please, stop.
That person, the male you just heard, is her friend. And she's saying, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Michael, right here. Come on, you're freaking me out. Come on, let's go. That's her friend that brought her there. And she said, out in the middle of nowhere, like, you're bringing me out in the middle of nowhere. And she's freaking out, thinking that he's got something to do with it. And he might have. Who knows?
Mike.
No, stop it, please.
That is the voice of Shannon Gilbert calling 911 on May 1st of 2010. She was calling from the gated community of Oak Beach on Long Island in New York. Shannon was a prostitute who visited a client in that neighborhood. That call for help did not save her. Shannon disappeared. The initial search of the area Shannon was calling from did not reveal what happened to Shannon or where she was. But it did uncover something even more shocking.
This girl helped find all these other people, and they say that her death was was caused by drowning, but supposedly she drowned in like 2 inches of water. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. Kara said, this is their name, their dating profile. We're going here at this time, etc. Oh, Kara said, I grew up in Long Island, even though I wasn't in that industry and neither of my friends were. Whenever we'd go out on dates, we started the whole, this is their name, their dating profile, this is where we're going at this time, etc. From what I understood, a lot of people at this time were doing that. She is an unintentional hero, and thank God for her. Yeah, Anders said, yeah, that Michael person was her boyfriend and her pimp and her driver and her security. Kara said, there is a podcast on Spotify called Lisk that I highly recommend for deep dives. So you guys can check that out. Lisk, L-I-S-K, stands for Long Island Sereal, K-I-L-L-E-R. Hello, Michelle, and thank you for being here. Anders, I don't know if I said hey to you, love. Hey.
A series of bodies and a potential serial killer. And as more bodies were discovered, the search intensified, and finally, 18 months later, Shannon's body was found.
Hello, Ava Sim 76. Thank you so much for being here, love.
Tonight, we take a listen to the 911 call made by Shannon, which took 12 years to release, and we try to uncover what happened to Shannon, how she died, and why this case has still not been solved. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. You know, when you grab that cell phone and you dial those 3 numbers, 911, there is only one reason we do it. We are desperate. We need help. We know things are not right. We're in a situation where we cannot handle it by ourselves.
And I want you to think about being a person that worked in that field, okay? Probably have some rugs on you or are on rugs. And it's 2010. It's way before that kind of job was looked upon kindly. It's looked upon more kindly now because we understand why people do those things, etc., etc. In 2010, it was not looked upon very kindly. And even though she could possibly have rugs on her, she's on rugs, and she was doing that, she still felt so scared that she called 911. Like, that child was scared to death.
It's dangerous. That's why we call 911. When we need help and we know we're in trouble. Shannon Gilbert made that call to 911. And in that call, which lasted many, many minutes.
There is nothing wrong. Kara said, I feel like it should be noted that there's nothing wrong with being in the adult industry. There's not. There's not at all whatsoever. At that point in time, though, society looked on it negatively, unfortunately. And now we understand a lot more about it, and we are more accepting as a society of those type of things. Back then, they weren't, though.
Revealed a lot of information.
Real quick, and I'll stop pausing. Anders said they said she was paranoid from the rugs. They absolutely did. But my response to that is she still ended up deceased that night. You know what I mean? So, like, was it really paranoia? You know? That's their excuse, though. She was paranoid from the rugs. She took off running and drowned in a bog or something to that effect, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've looked into this case, but I remember a lot because I looked into it. I deep dived this case several times.
A lot of information. But for years, no one has heard that 911 call. And the reason we were given for years by investigators was it could harm the investigation. And we hear that line a lot, and I get it. Maybe in the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours, maybe the first year, maybe the first couple years. But when you're talking about more than a decade and you still haven't come up with an answer, we're not harming anything. Because it's clear that investigation is not getting it done. So now It took a judge's order to get that 911 call released. Shannon Gilbert died that night. And no one's been held responsible. There hasn't been an answer as to what happened. But not only did she die, I mean, there was body after body after body that was all discovered in this area in Long Island, New York.
Kara gifted 5 Speculation Station memberships. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Kara. You're so awesome. Thank you. If you guys were gifted a membership from Kara, please tell her thank you. Thank you again, Kara. That was super sweet of you. Zayo, if I didn't say hey to you, I don't know if I did earlier or not, but if I didn't, I wanted to make sure to say hey to you. And if you talk to Eek, please tell her we're sending her love. Thank you again, Kara. That was super sweet. Joy, if I didn't say hey to you, hello to you too. Joy says creepy serial killers. Oops, I shouldn't have said that word. Yep, exactly. Hey, true crime addict again.
And we're not even close to figuring it out, I don't think. But it took a judge to order it. Then it took like another couple years. And finally, we're starting to learn a little bit more about what happened the night that Shannon Gilbert died. I'm going to play for you some of the most important parts of that call right now. Let's take a listen.
Hey, please, keep it fine.
Zayo asked what part of the industry was she in. She was not like, you know, she was a working girl by herself. She, you know, did what she had to do to support her rug habit, from what I understand. And her boyfriend, Michael, and you're going to see his name in this call, he was like her security guard. And basically it's like a kind of like a Craigslist thing. She would post on Craigslist. She would get the call. He would drive her out to wherever, you know, she was supposed to provide her services. And then she would provide her services, get paid, and go pay her boyfriend / pimp and go get her rugs and all of that. Back page, yeah, she did that. Escort, said Anders, yes.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me. Where are you? There's somebody after me. Okay, where are you? There's somebody after me. Where are you, ma'am? I don't know. Are you driving right now? No, I'm inside the house. I'm sorry? I'm inside the house. What house? I don't know. Can you trace where I am? I'm sorry? Can you trace where I am? No, I can't. What's your callback number you're calling from? Huh? What phone number are you calling from? Somebody's after me. Please. Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County? I'm in Long Island. Where on Long Island are you? No.
So Joseph Brewer, that's the person who owns the house that she's in. And he's saying, yeah, he wants to talk to you. The guy wants to talk to you. And she's saying no. And he's saying, go ahead, talk to her. And she's saying no. And they never catch what he's saying right here. Joseph Brewer owns the house she's in. And then you're going to hear a guy's voice named Michael. That's her boyfriend / pimp. And this is showing you the location of where the call came from. That night, they didn't know. Now they know it was coming from this house.
No. No, stop, no. Where in Long Island are you? In Suffolk County? Nassau County? Huh? Why?
Now you see the name Michael Pack. That's her boyfriend / pimp. And here you see she's saying, "Why are you calling me by my name?" Because she uses a different name. And now she's like, "Why are you calling me by my regular name? You know not to call me by that name," is what she's thinking. So that's making her think that he might be in on it. You know what I mean? And you got to also remember, like I said, she's on rugs. So could she be paranoid? Yes, she could be paranoid. But at the same time, she ended up deceased. So I don't know. Yeah, I think she had high-end clients as well.
Why you call me by my name? Why? Kenny, you on the line? Stop.
And she's telling him to stop calling her by her name. Bad Girl said, "I wonder why Shannon hasn't been connected to Rex." I wonder that myself, because I'm sorry, the way that they say she died, I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it was an accident. I think it was intentional. I don't know how you think it's an accident with this 911 call going on. Yeah, it definitely, Joyce says it sounds like she got set up. It's sure enough, it really does.
Please stop it, please. Please stop. Please, can you shut the door?
No, time to go.
Please. Please.
Please.
Please.
Go that way, please. Go, come on, let's go. Come on, roll that.
So, in case you can't hear, because it's harder to hear the men, the owner of the house is saying, "Come on, let's go. We're all going out. We'll all go outside. Come on, going outside, all of us. Come on, all of us. Come on. We're all going outside. Come on." I think Brewer, yeah, so there's a story about a physician on the island too that called her mom, I think it was, and said that she came there that night. He gave her medication to calm down, and then she took off running again. But then when questioned later, that physician said he didn't know what they were talking about, and it wasn't his phone that got called. This is another crazy one. Something is so wrong here. Yeah, it was not an accidental death. Something is so wrong here.
Come on, go outside. Come on, all of us. Come on, go outside. Come on.
No, please.
Come on. Please, come on.
Please.
Come on.
Why?
Just come out here. I'm going to say this. You leave. I'm going to say this.
So it's saying, "I'll go upstairs. I'll go upstairs. You leave. Hey, look, I'm going upstairs. You leave. I'm going upstairs. Okay? You leave, please."
Okay? Please.
So the owner of the house is saying, "Take care." Her boyfriend / pimp is saying, "Take care." And then she says something, but they can't tell what it is. Her speaking is in red. The owner of the house is green, and her boyfriend is in blue.
What's the matter? Are you okay?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me? I'm like, why? Huh? Well, I don't know. It was transferred to me. Why? You going to kill me? You going to kill me? Why are you going to...
She's asking her boyfriend, are you gonna unalive me? And he's like, "Are you crazy?" and laughing at her. Like, he's laughing at her, and she's freaking out, and he's supposed to have her back, and yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, True Crime Addict. So I thought the driver was the boyfriend, and I got that confused. True Crime Addict says Shannon Gilbert's boyfriend was Alex Diaz, who's not here. Michael Pack was her driver. I apologize for that. I think I got that confused. I thought the boyfriend was also the driver and the security. I thought it was one person doing all of these things. So Michael Pack was the driver. And Sarah said I think they ruled it death by misadventure, basically accidental. Yeah, I don't think it was accidental at all whatsoever.
Oh, stop it, come on.
You freaking me out. Come on.
No, nowhere.
Let's go back to Manhattan. All right? We're in Long Island. We're up near the water stuff.
Please, stop.
Please, Mike. Brother,
No, stop it, please.
We're going to play more, but we've got a lot to get to here tonight, this hour, taking a look at what happened to Shannon Gilbert and what happened out there in Gilgo Beach. Joining me now by phone, special guest in New York City, criminal defense attorney, and the attorney who represents Shannon Gilbert's family, John Ray, is back with us. John, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time tonight.
Okay, certainly.
Now, we've been waiting a long time for this stuff to be released. We're learning more, but I need you to start to fill in some of the blanks for me and for everyone watching tonight. Shannon Gilbert calls 911. You call 911 when you need help. She's inside a house. Whose house is she in? Who is she with?
Anders, yeah, I know you did, love, but I thought it was too. And True Crime Addict said no problem about letting us know about the difference in the boyfriend and the driver. She said usually her boyfriend would drive her, but that night he couldn't, so they had Michael drive. Yep. Thank you for that. And that was another thing I remember now, like that made it questionable if the boyfriend knew, because a lot of people think that driver knew and set her up.
She's in the house of Joseph Brewer, who was a John. And at the time you hear her calling, and right after that, certainly Brewer is in the house. And then her driver, Michael Pack, appears to have come into the house, or else he was already there. And those are the only two we can identify as having been there.
Do you suspect that there were other people there? It's hard to tell in that 911 call. There's voices in the background. There's some mumbling. Do you suspect that there was anyone else inside the house that night?
There were other people there. Whether they were in the house or outside the house is not clear. But Shannon certainly believes that they are in both places.
A lot of people question if Rex Heuermann was in that house that night, or if he went to that house. I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he has some type of connection to this person or this house, like as it being like a place where high-end people from Manhattan or the area would go to party. And they question if he was there that night, though nobody has put him there physically. A lot of people think he was there.
And that's the underlying key to the first part of the calls, that Shannon was acting perfectly rationally. She had a very hard decision to make. She went out of character for a prostitute and called 911 and desperately looked for help because, as she said, somebody was after me. And that somebody couldn't have been Joseph Brewer, because you hear Brewer, he's the John, he's been with her for hours. It would make no sense for her to make that kind of a statement if she was reporting Brewer. And indeed, when you hear Brewer saying that, words to the effect that, I want to talk to you, and she just says no, she doesn't identify him as the culprit who's chasing her. She's worried about somebody who's outside. And you can hear that in the following parts of the tape, certainly. So she has to make what you might say is a Sophie's choice. She has to decide whether to stay in the house where she's pretty certain to be hurt because she said so, or she has to go out into the darkness on the deck and then down into the on the driveway and out into the street in the total darkness. At that time, it's 4:53 when the phone call is first made, and she has to face who's ever out there. Which do you choose to do if you were her? And so you choose 911, makes perfect sense. We don't even know if she's using a throwaway phone, and she doesn't mention her telephone number, but she asks the people there at 911 to identify her so that they could find her. All of that makes perfect sense when you are under the threat of your life. And so when she bolts finally out of the house, which you will hear on that tape,
My neighbor walked up, so I had to talk to her real quick. So I was listening, but I missed a little bit. Sarah said her mom was red-rummed by her sister later on. Her sister had evidently had mental health issues as well. I think Shannon had a history too with mental illness. I do as well. They talk about it some in some of the documentaries. Bad Girl said yes, she did, and that poor family has suffered so much. She also gave us the names by stating, "Rest in peace, Shannon and Mary. Your suffering is over." And again, as I always say, please remember the victims in all of this. There is a lot. Please say a prayer for them today, or, whatever you do, think of them today. Anders said he was kind to represent the victims' families for free, but he had a very strange press conference recently. Yes, this man is representing the families and victims for free. There are some strange press conferences, though, as well. Yeah.
It makes perfect rational sense to have done that. And then you hear the blood-curdling screams. So, that's so far, that takes you through it so far as I see it.
So give me a little more
perfectly
background. What is Brewer and Michael Pack? Michael Pack is the driver she had that brought her from her home out to Long Island?
Yes, Michael Pack is an escort driver. That's what he does. He takes the place of the old-fashioned pimp. And he drives her in her SUV from Manhattan after midnight out to Oak Beach. It is highly unlikely that he, who is very concerned with money, every penny of money, would have taken that trip using the gas all the way out to Suffolk County in the pitch of the night for a small amount of money. And to have made that arrangement all by telephone and trusted that he would have been paid. That doesn't make any sense. What does?
And again, I mean, that's pointing to, did he know what was going to happen? And was it a setup for somebody to be so concerned about money and then trust that the money's going to be there? I mean, I can tell you from living that lifestyle, not too many people are just going to trust that money's going to be there. You got to have money in hand. And I'll just leave that at that. Hello, RC99. RC99 says, don't agree with all John Ray says, but I like that he keeps an open mind. Yes, I do. And I like that he's representing the families for free. And let me just state real quick before anybody runs with that notion. I never did what Shannon did, but I have went down a dark road at one point in my life where I used rugs. So that's what I mean by that lifestyle. I had a boyfriend. I never did these things, but I don't think that she should be shamed for doing it. We all just go different paths, unfortunately. If I could have it anyway, I wish that all of the rugs would just not be here and nobody ever had to experience anything like that. But that's just me. I'm going to get back to this now.
Does make sense is that this was a prearranged meeting. And the more details than that, we do not know, and the police haven't discovered. So
wait. Let me follow up on that because I want to make sure I'm following you here. Are you saying a prearranged meeting, something beyond the time she spent with Brewer?
Something else was arranged. Certainly Brewer was involved in it, but for Shannon to travel all the way out with Pack in that SUV would not ordinarily have occurred unless there was a prearranged meeting and there was a fairly good sum of money involved.
So again, we have to ask, was this person paid to bring her out there because he knew what was going to happen? It's weird to me, even in that part of the 911 call and more that we're going to hear later, that she knows this person, yet she's running from him. She doesn't feel safe. He's laughing while she's freaking out instead of trying to tell her, breathe, calm down. You got to calm down. No, he's laughing at her. Like, it's all weird to me. That seems like a setup. Sarah said, okay, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. Let me read the comment first though. Sarah said, I didn't dig them dragging the daughter the way they did. The daughter had dark art and writings, but that automatically didn't make her do what her dad did. Right. I don't agree with dragging the family. I don't agree with talking about the mother or the daughter. I have heard some kind of weird thing going on, but I haven't looked into it. I do have a video on it though, and we can look into it together. Yeah, lots of people have dark minds and fantasies, but the difference is whether they act upon them. Right. You would be surprised. Yeah, there's something that has been released recently about the daughters and some kind of I'll say that supposedly she kind of did what Jeffrey Dahmer did as far as her choice of food, but I don't know that that's true. I highly doubt that it is, but we'll look into it.
Remember that Shannon normally has 2-hour trysts, and this tryst lasted for 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So according to Brewer and or Pack, they claim that she agreed to do extra time once she got out there. That's not likely either, especially because Brewer has claimed publicly a number of times that when Shannon arrived, he didn't want to have anything to do with her because she looked like a man and he wouldn't have any kind of relations with her. He claimed that. That's hogwash. And so there are lies being told about the whole thing by these people who were involved. And these lies have never been pursued by the police in any capacity.
Okay, so why are they lying? Why are the police not pursuing these lies? Why are they not looking into this case? Why is anybody lying at all about the situation? We already know that she was out there. We already know there was rugs involved. Why are we lying? The police did lie. From what I understand, this neighborhood, number one, is where judges and doctors and physicians and high up people in this area live. They live in this neighborhood. It's a rich, wealthy neighborhood. Okay. And from what I understand, there was judges and police officers and things that would come to this person's house and party. Yes. Kara says the SCPD was so corrupt then, and they were, even with this case, like they state that, there's missteps in this case that are very public. Rex Heuermann was an architect and got paid a lot of money in Manhattan. So there's ties. Kara said the former chief of police is in prison now, I think. I hadn't heard that. I knew he got in trouble, but I did not know that. Bad Girl says no one deserves to leave this earth like these ladies did. The fear and terror they felt is beyond words. Yeah, I could not have put that better myself. And thank you for putting that out there. And I want us again to remember the victims in this. And then True Crime said because the high up police swept it under the rug. They absolutely did. And they still are. Like, this is still ruled what Sarah said, misadventure. No. This 911 call happened right before she supposedly was so messed up that she drowned in less than a foot of water. I don't buy it.
Nonetheless, Brewer is the guy and who allegedly hires her. And when she gets there, at some point, she and you won't hear it on the tape, but before the tape, she and Brewer leave the home of Brewer and drive in Brewer's car. We don't know exactly where, but the claim is that they went to go to a CVS to pick up certain items and then bring them back. That's not likely, but that's what is said. But both Pack and Brewer claim that.
So I mean, just putting two and two together, they're stating that she left with the homeowner. They went to CVS to pick up certain items. No, more than likely, if they did go to CVS to pick up certain items, it was probably condoms. And they probably had relations. And she was like, okay, I've done what I came here to do, and maybe wanted to leave. And then some shit went down. If I had to guess using those contextual clues I was just giving, that would be my guess. Speculation. Allegedly speculating.
That they left with Shannon earlier, and the telephone records we have support that point. And then they came back, Brewer and Shannon, to Brewer's home. So Shannon shows no fear of Brewer. She goes in his car. She goes in his house. She stays with him for almost 4 hours. He can't be the person who she says she's afraid that somebody is after me. He can't be. It has to be somebody else.
We've got more of the 911 call, and it's finally been released. We're going to play it, John Ray.
So she wasn't scared of the homeowner. Who is she afraid of? Is she afraid of her driver? Is she afraid of other people in the house?
He's going to stay with us. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're diving deep into this tonight. Plus, coming up next hour. In Low Country, South Carolina, the Murdaugh family murder mystery. They are called.
Oh, we need to look into that one as well. Real quick, he did have a bag full of toys, from what I understand, in his cop car. Oh, cop car. Oh, the corrupt police chief. That's interesting. I didn't know that. True Crime said, I've been studying this case for a long time. I've gone down this rabbit hole. Just call me Alice. Well, I'll be the white rabbit because I've gone down this rabbit hole as well. Sarah said, James Burke, the police chief, was sketchy too. Unraveled goes into that part. I believe they did it before Rex was arrested. I think they did too. Yeah, there's also a speculation that they did some work together as far as unaliving people, the police chief. Need some Z's. Hello, and thank you for being here. Says, yes, the former police chief, James Burke, is in prison now. Thank you for that information. Yeah, we need to do a whole stream on James Burke. Sarah's going to be the Mad Hatter. The Lisk podcast has one on James Burke too. So if y'all want to check that out, there you go for that. And Anders says, yes, he beat up a man in the arrest who had stolen his toys. Oh my God. Are you serious? I had not heard that. That's crazy.
Calling it the biggest case in the state's history. Alec Murdaugh, an attorney and member of a prominent family with strong influence, sits
at thezebra.com now.
These people are plotting to kill me. Where are you? What's your address? What's your address? What's your address?
Oh, Mike, stop, Mike. Yeah. Mike, stop. Mike, stop.
Where are you?
Mike, stop it. Mike, stop.
She's saying, Mike, stop it. Mike, stop. Mike, stop. Mike is her driver. Yes, yes, they were supposedly involved in unaliving films. Yep. The more y'all are telling me, the more I remember from when I deep dived this about a year ago. The task force found Huerman in a couple of months. Yeah. As soon as they got involved, he was found pretty much like real quick. And this case had been going on for some years before he was found with that police chief. The Tom Petty style Mad Hatter. I like Tom Petty.
What's your name, Shannon?
Huh? Mike, stop. I'm here.
Where are you? What's your address? Hello?
You want me to call the police?
Yeah, hold on, then I know you're telling the truth. The address.
What are we going to tell?
Tell them something. Mike, stop it. You guys are planning something.
That's Shannon.
So she said to him, yeah, he said, do you want me to call the police? And she said, yeah, call me the police and then I'll know and we don't know what it says, but I'm assuming she's saying, then I'll know you're like basically on my side. You're not trying to hurt me, but he never does. They got him because of pizza. They got the pizza crust from the trash can and that's how they got him. Kara says, who knew pizza could also take down criminals along with clogging our arteries? If that ain't the truth, I don't know what is. Sarah saw Tom Petty live before he passed away. That's interesting.
Shannon Gilbert calling 911 back in 2010. She died that night. This case has never been resolved or solved. The answers are not there, just not there. But it's taken 12 years just to get the 911 calls released at this point because there's a lot that just doesn't smell right about this case and this investigation. She was working as a prostitute that night, went to a John's house in Long Island, went all the way from Manhattan out to Long Island. And then she made this call, and then she was never seen or heard from again until they found her body 18 months later. John Ray is still with us. He's representing the family of Shannon Gilbert. First question, John, I know you've done such an amazing job.
What's weird to me, another thing is like that they can't triangulate the calls, right? I'll tell you a story real quick. When I first met my husband and my wonderful bonus children, I babysat for them for a while, okay? Before, so that he could work before we got in a relationship. And anyway, one day the kids were in their room watching TV, and I had the baby gate up, and I was sitting in the living room watching TV. And at the time, there was a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a baby, like a crawling baby in the room. Okay. Well, they had gotten a phone, and they were calling, they sat in the closet and called 911. Okay. Cause it was like one of the old phones that like the only thing you could do would be to call 911, but we didn't realize it at the time. And either I gave it to him or he gave it to him just to play with, but it would still call 911. Well, I got a phone call on my phone while I was sitting in the living room, and a policeman knocked on my door, and they said, "Hey, we keep getting 911 calls and hear children laughing," and then they hang the phone up. And so I was like, that's weird. And so I went, and then they were watching TV like I hadn't seen this. And I said, "Do you guys have a phone?" And they were like, "Yeah." And they showed it to me. And of course, it was the phone that had been calling. Funny story. But going to relate to this case, if they could do that in 7, 8, almost 9 years ago, why couldn't they triangulate where she was calling from? Like, I understand maybe it's out in the boonies, but I still don't understand why it took them 18 months to find her. Like, even if it took you a couple of days, like, I mean, with all of the technology we have, you couldn't have found that out. That's weird to me.
In pursuing this relentlessly on behalf of the family, but that family has suffered a lot of tragedy. Does Shannon have any family left that is waiting for an answer here?
Yes, Shannon's sisters, Cherie and Stevie, they still are alive. Her sister Sarah is alive, but she is incarcerated in a mental facility. And she, as you know, she slew her mother, Mary Gilbert, Shannon's mother as well. And partly because she had lost her mind due to Shannon's death. So there's many more, there's 2 other deaths involved in this case in that respect, ironically and sadly.
Taking such a toll on the family. As we listen to that 911 call, I heard some laughter at one point in the background.
Right.
She's saying these people are trying to kill me.
Right.
It's a gated community, right? So is there any record kept of who comes in and who comes out? Have all the people from that community behind the gate been interviewed? What are your thoughts there?
There were cameras, security cameras, at least 2 of them at the booth in the entranceway to the community. And those cameras were on working that night. When she came and whoever left, they would have filmed. These cameras were in the charge of Dr. Peter Hackett, who's one of the people who lived in Oak Beach at the time. And he was also an officer in the association board. He caused the tapes to be erased so that the police never got them. Police didn't even come for them until some 18 days after Shannon's disappearance. And in that time, they were all erased. There were several community members directly involved in this case and involved in seeing Shannon, and nonetheless, they were ignored by the police. The police did a very light touch investigation, and to this day, that's the way it's been.
Now, the other part of this story that grabbed even more headlines were the fact that once they started searching for Shannon, they discovered body after body after body. I want to play a little bit of Geraldine Hart, Suffolk County Police Commissioner, talking about those other bodies that were discovered. And
I just noticed that they're talking about a physician that had the camera footage and it had been recorded over. Now, they waited 18 days to go get it, which I think is really weird. They went 18 days and still didn't find her remains until 18 months later is really weird. I don't know if it's weird that it was recorded over, because during that time period, you wouldn't think anything of it. So at that time, like in 2010, I know a lot of security footage would record over itself after 72 hours. So I don't think that that's weird. But, the physician that found it, I need to write that name down to see if it's the same physician that they stated called somebody and said that Shannon came to their house that night. Yeah, the tentacles are very, there are so many tentacles to this case. It's crazy.
how it relates or doesn't relate to what happened to Shannon. Let's listen.
Are you changing your position now on whether or not Shannon Gilbert may have been a victim of this killing spree?
So we've constantly said, and I can tell you at least for the time that I've been involved in this investigation since 2015, that she does not match the pattern of the Gilgo Beach homicides. But again, I want to emphasize to everybody here, we let the facts dictate where we're going to go with this investigation. It's very dangerous to speculate or come to a conclusion before all the investigation is completed and the evidence is reviewed.
All right, John, I'm interested in your thoughts on all the other bodies that were found as they were searching for Shannon and ones they found subsequent to that as well. Do you see a connection here?
There's indubitably a connection amongst all of them. It's almost impossible to imagine rationally that they're not connected.
Hold on a minute. That's going to be loud for just a second. I'm going to close the window. Sarah told me the physician's name was Peter Hackett. Hopefully that made it to where it's not so loud. If you would not mind, I'll only ask you once to please fist bump that like button. And so these are showing where these people were in location to each other, relevance to each other. It's hard for me to see. I think it says something 2 meters. So these two were far apart. This is a male that was dressed up as a female, I do believe. And then these females, I don't remember all of their names, but they were all ladies of the night. And this was a man of the night posing as a lady of the night, from what I understand. Oh, y'all can't see my mouse on there. I'm sorry. But you can see the one in white that's like a sketch. That was a man he was trans, and he worked the night as well. And then you can see these other victims as well. And then all the way on the end here, there's another one, and you can see in relation, like they're all lined up right here in this bushy area. From what I understand, there was a lot of brush, but it was, I still don't understand how all of those are there. You're coming to the area to look for Shannon Gilbert, and you're not finding any of this. Bad Girl says it's outrageous to wait 18 days to get the footage, and it absolutely is. But her body was the first they found on Gilgo Beach. I think hers was the first. I don't know. It's probably going to tell us in just a second. I don't know if they found her first or one of the others, but they found her. I know that they found one, or they found some bodies, and then at some point a man went back with a trained dog that was a cadaver dog and found some more that they hadn't even found yet. I'm sure that he'll talk about it. That's supposed to be all coincidence. All those unalived women that were call girls. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yes, Sarah's saying it. I think at least one was found while a canine officer was doing training with his police canine. Yep. Yes, he was Asian. He was an Asian call girl. Yeah.
Several of the bodies,
Thank you, Robert.
the body parts or their trunks, as depending on the person, are found in Manorville, which is a wooded area further out in Long Island, and their other parts are found along Oak Beach, along Ocean Parkway from Oak Beach to Gilgo Beach, and all the way down to Nassau County, the next county over. And there was a baby found who was matched up with a mother who was found miles away along the same strip. And there was also an Asian male cross-dressing, allegedly, Asian.
The part about the baby really broke my heart. Somebody came to this place with a child, I think it was a 2-year-old, and that person was done in, and the child. Like, so sad.
Male found as well along that strip. They all have similar patterns. The throat seems to have been the focus of whoever did the killing. In Shannon's case, she too was like the others that they could identify. She was a sex worker, and her throat appears to have been damaged as well. She had a bone that's known as the hyoid bone in her throat. Everybody has one of those. It's the only bone that's not connected to any other bone in the body. It's very difficult to reach. Shannon's hyoid bone was snapped at both ends. It's a U-shaped bone, small, and it had a hole virtually drilled right through the middle of the bone.
How on earth does your hyoid bone snap, but you did it to yourself? You know what I mean? Like, Epstein's hyoid bone was snapped, and we all know what we say about Epstein, right? So, come on now, police.
That the snapping of the bone is indicative of a homicide. Some of the other women who were found were also found having been either strangulated or suffocated. One of them we know was suffocated with her underwear having been stuffed out her throat. So there are commonalities in all of these things, and the dismemberment of some of them is common from one to the other. They stretch out in terms of their disappearance over years, but they're all in fact, 4 of them are found in tandem with burlap, either taught. It looks like burlap was placed over them in the spots where they were found along Ocean Parkway. So they're related for sure. They're all related, and there's very likely more than one person involved in these killings.
It's unbelievable to hear the investigators saying there's no connection here. There's no commonality between this sex worker's death and the death of the other ones who are all lined up along the strip there in Gilgo. I mean, it's mind-boggling to even say that.
Well, you say so because you're an objective observer, but if you listen to the police department from the get-go on this case, a police department that was thoroughly sexually and otherwise corrupted from the top down, from their police chief down, he having spent time in jail and having solicited prostitutes on his journey through the police. You take their word. They want you to believe the absurd. They want you to believe that of 11 people, of whom most of them were identifiable as sex workers, and the others weren't identifiable one way or the other. You're supposed to believe that they're all lined up on the same narrow strip of Parkway along a waterfront, and all of them in the same work, all of them with very similar patterns of dismemberment and throat injuries, all of them including Shannon.
Thank you, Shira. Thank you so much for being here, Shira. And Shira reminded us, yes, thank you, because they did say that in the beginning that Shannon's body was discovered 18 months after the first body was found. So I wasn't sure when the first body was found. I knew that she was discovered 18 months after the 911 call. But that tells me that the police did get out there relatively quickly looking for her, and that's when they found the first bodies. I appreciate the information, Sheila, and thank you so much for being Shira. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep mispronouncing your name. And thank you so much, Shira, for being here.
Shannon Gilbert in the marsh on one side or the other of the Parkway And you're supposed to believe, according to the police, that with all of what you heard on that tape so far, and with some of the other facts that we have that certainly implicate murder, that somehow Shannon Gilbert just happens to be a coincidence and has nothing to do with the others, and wandered into the marsh and killed herself there by some accidental means and laid face up on top of a bush where they found her remains later on, and she died of a tragic accident. If you listen to the police department as we speak, that is their story. That is a lie. That is a corrupted story.
Yeah, how exactly, supposedly, if I remember correctly, she's supposedly, like, tragically drowned in the marsh, okay? In, like, barely any water. She's found face up. Her hyoid bone is broken, along with all these other bodies that are found there, whose neck is the point of contact, is what the unaliver goes after, the neck, right? Her neck, her hyoid bone is broke. Like, how did you do that? You fell in a marsh, drowned, simultaneously broke your hyoid bone, which usually isn't done unless somebody's choking you or you hang yourself. Like, excuse me, what? And they all happen to be call girls. I'm not buying what you're selling, sir.
They are covering up for something very deep and serious.
Absolutely.
And there's no doubt about that anymore. There was always the doubt about it for years when they wouldn't release the tapes. But when I went to court and finally forced them to release the tapes, now they spun their story out, and this is their latest story. This is a police department of homicide investigators, some of the supposed to be the best professionals in this country, but certainly the highest paid. And these homicide people are supposed to rely upon evidence. They themselves admit they have no evidence whatsoever that Shannon Gilbert died by accident, yet that is the spin they want you to believe. They massage the evidence into basically a false stance, and thereby try to convince the public of the utterly absurd that this girl died by accident instead of by homicide.
Yeah, because that would disconnect her from all the other bodies that are there, and all
Correct.
of a sudden make it completely different.
Yeah, and she happened to call 911, is running from a house in an area of high up, officials, okay, in New York City or Manhattan, Long Island area, et cetera, et cetera. But she's calling 911 from a place where you also find all these other bodies of people in the same profession with neck injuries. She has a neck injury. She's calling 911. She's scared for her life. She's thinking somebody's going to do her in, but that's all coincidence. Like, at some point, it's not coincidence.
All right, we're going to take
Hey, hello, Kitty. How are you doing today, love?
a short break. We've got more to get to, more of the 911 call. We'll bring in some additional investigators. John Ray staying with us. Don't go anywhere.
Where in Long Island are you? I don't know. They're going to kill me. Are you in a house? Are you in a house? Yeah. Whose house is it? I don't know.
So I don't know if you caught it there, but she was just saying they're going to kill me. Like, and all of this is supposed to be coincidence. I apologize if I'm being loud or anything. I talk loud as it is, but I get animated about this case, especially Shannon Gilbert, because I can't, but I'm not buying it. That family has already been through so much too, and to look them in the face and tell them that this was all accidental. Like, why did it take you so long to release the 911 calls then? Like, I'm not today, Satan, not today. No, sir. No, ma'am. Stop it.
Hello? Hello? Please. What's the problem? What's the matter? What happened? Hello? Please, get me out of here, Mike. Hello? You're being sarcastic. About this. You were part of this all along.
So she's saying you're being sarcastic. He says about what? And she says about this. You're a part of this all along. And he says, I just met him just now, and says something else. Bad Girl says, what are the odds that she states they're going to kill me, but yet she is found deceased? Right. And some people should not be 911 operators, because she just sounds bored and like, oh God, can we please get to the end of this? Like, ma'am, I mean, you got to have some understanding that sometimes people don't know where they're at, and they're freaking out, and they're trying to get help, and they don't know this information. Like, you need to be trying to figure a way out to trace it.
Shannon.
Shannon Gilbert called 911. She needed help. You heard her scream. She didn't survive that night. It was 12 years ago, in 2010. Finally, the 911 call has been released. We're talking about it tonight. Let's bring in our guest, still with us, the attorney who represents Shannon Gilbert's family, John Ray, is with us. Joining us now in New York City, private investigator, founder of Black Ops Private Investigators, former New York City police officer Manuel Gomez is with us. Also in New York, former New York City Assistant Commissioner, former NYPD Sergeant Special Assignment, Dr. Keith Taylor. And in Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, and the host of the Body Bags podcast. Please check it out. Please download it. Joseph Scott Morgan is with us. John Ray, what we just heard, that screaming, the running, she's outside. It seems like she is accusing Pac, her driver, of being part of whatever happened that night.
Yes, she is. She tells him, or she says to him sarcastically, "Are you?"
Bad Girl says, "Oh God, the horror of Shannon's scream. Yeah, it's enough to send chills up your spine." But she did it. It was an accident. Stop it. Rex did live. Says Sarah. Sarah says Rex lived pretty. My goodness, I'll get it in a minute. Sarah says Rex lived in pretty close proximity to where Gilgo Beach is. He did. He absolutely did. Joseph Scott Morgan is great, says Sarah, excuse me. Bad Girl says, guess Rex's wife moved out of the house and left New York. Yeah, she's originally from like Iceland or Greenland or something, and I think she went home, which I don't blame her. I would have too.
Are you part of this? Or words to that effect. And he leaves, or apparently goes outside. And then when she bolts and runs outside, you hear those blood-curdling screams, but you don't know who caused it. And then she continues to run. The police spin that story incorrectly on purpose. They put on a false light on that whole story, because what she does is she runs until she knocks on the door of a fellow named Gus Coletti, an older man. And he does not let her in. He does not say anything to her except a few sarcastic comments. And she says nothing to him whatsoever, and then bolts and disappears again until she knocks on another woman's door, Mrs. Brennan. But during that time, the police have now spun that story to say that Coletti invited her in to his house, that she went into his house and bolted irrationally, when none of that happened and none of that's on the tape. They're lying about what happened. But what you do know happened is what you heard, is that somebody assaulted her and she escaped. And she did exactly what would be rational. She bolted for her life. So there's so much more to this case, and there's so many more pieces of evidence that the police refuse to investigate, and it's a willful refusal.
Joseph Scott Morgan, I wanted to put up on the screen for you part of the report from Dr. Michael Bodden, who did an independent evaluation of what happened to Shannon Gilbert.
Shannon was absolutely beautiful. And it irritates me every time to hear them say that somebody at the house stated they didn't want to have relations with her because she looked like a man. She does not look whatsoever like a man at all. She's absolutely gorgeous. And Ava Sim, coming in with that correction for me, thank you, said the baby was 18 months old. I thought it was a 2-year-old. I appreciate that correction. And thank you for letting us know that information. I really appreciate that. Bad Girl says, they ID'd Shannon by the plate in her jaw. Yep, from where her boyfriend had broken her jaw. Yep, you're absolutely right. I remember that now that you say it.
And this is what he found. Almost all of the skeletal bones were recovered and appeared normal. There was not evidence of trauma. However, the larynx was missing, and only the body of the hyoid bone was found. The 2 greater horns of that neck bone were missing. These structures, the larynx and the hyoid bone, are often fractured during homicidal manual strangulation. My examination of the recovered body of the hyoid bone after it had been anthropologically defleshed showed a roughness at the margins where the separated horns had been attached. It is my opinion, based on the circumstances of Shannon's death and the materials I've reviewed, that there's no evidence that she died of a natural disease, of a drug overdose, or of a drowning. There's insufficient information to determine a definite cause of death, but the autopsy findings are consistent with homicidal strangulation. What are your thoughts tonight?
Yeah, isn't this fascinating? You know, you've got Suffolk that's saying that, they've apparently opined that this was a drug overdose, and, oh, by the way, she drowned as well. Well, what are you basing that upon? We're talking about skeletal remains. How'd you draw toxicology to make that conclusion? Maybe she has some kind of history of drug usage in the past. And while we're talking,
I didn't know that. Yeah, I knew it was skeletal remains, but they're saying, I knew they said she drowned, but they're also saying it was a drug overdose. How do you determine that from bones? From the time, at the time of death, she overdosed on drugs, which you would not be able to determine unless you had her organs, and that she drowned, which again, you would not be able to determine unless you had her lungs. I'm looking up the court date right now, Rubber Ramada. I know it's not too far away. And Bad Girl said, that's an odd comment about her looking like a man, yet an Asian male posing as a woman is unallowed. Really? Yes. And even though Joseph Brewer said that she looked like a man, he still left with her in the car and supposedly went to CVS. Like, stop it.
Talking about it, how'd you come to the conclusion that she drowned? Did you examine her lungs? No, I forgot. There are no lungs. She was skeletonized. Did you examine her inner ear? No, because there's not going to be anything there. That's one of the things we look for in drowning. But what Dr. Bodden did conclude is that after he finally got his hands on the hyoid, remember, they've already examined this. They talked about the defleshing. That's one of the things that the anthropologist does. He finally got his hands on the hyoid and was able to examine it. And interestingly enough, the horns were missing. And as counsel had mentioned earlier, this bone, the hyoid bone, is the only non-articulated bone in the body. It simply is there to anchor the tongue then. And this is
Rubber Ramada. His next court date is December 17th, and it says the judge set the next court date as December 17th and said he wants to set the trial date at that time. So we'll have a trial date for this case, for not Shannon, but the Gilgo Beach and the Long Island Sereal unaliver at that time. Sarah said, I'm not even sure what they could determine from skeletal remains if she had no tissue left. Right. Robert, yep, okay. Thank you. I found it for you and you found it for me. And Anders said, good thing they pay some attention to this case. Yeah, because it could be swept under the rug. Think about how many cases like this are swept under the rug just because of their profession that they were in at this time. At the time that they disappeared or that they died, like, I hate it. Just because somebody does this for a living doesn't make them any less valuable to the people they love, to the world in general. It doesn't mean they shouldn't have justice. I don't like the way people demonize people going through some shit. Excuse my French. And the Asian male was unallowed before Shannon. Yes.
It's way, way high up in the neck. That's why you always talk about with manual strangulations, one of the things that people look for in my field in medical legal death investigation, has someone C-clamped this person?
I apologize. I was muted. What you see moving down at the bottom that looks like maybe somebody's hair, that's the area where they found the bodies. That's showing how tall the grass is and how thick it is to get through. But I'm sorry, even at that, you should still be able to find all of these, somebody's dumping ground, even if grass is like 10 feet tall and it's hard to search through. You need to have a task force that spends days, weeks, however long going through all of that, combing through it with a fine tooth comb. I mean, if you've got a number of people in there going through that, it's not going to take you that long to clear the area. Kara said hold on just a minute. Kara said it's super cold there too, so that could be a factor. We don't have a list section in Discord yet. I saw that and I need to make one. I also need to make a doTERRA section. The Unaliver knew that area very well, said Bad Girl. They absolutely did. Kara said, and it's pitch black. Yep.
Have they throttled them so high up in the neck that they're going to pop this bone? They're going to crack it. And apparently Dr. Biden is opining that after he's seen this defleshed highway bone.
Manuel Gomez, private investigator. Your thoughts about the police department out there? There's been a lot of skepticism about them. Some of the folks have gotten into a lot of trouble out there. What happened here? What happened? Why can't this thing be solved? Why is the investigation gone the way it's gone?
Well, it could have been solved if they wouldn't have dropped one major ball in this case. And one of that was all 5 of these women had online aliases, and they were being sex trafficked online. Like, for example, Babylon Escorts, where they sell women and they advertise the prices. All of them were doing this. All of them had the same John Doe initiating contact with them, trying to hook up with them. The police department failed to subpoena these internet services, these escort sex trafficking services that would have showed the connection that all these women had the same guy reaching out to them, or the same men. Unfortunately, they dropped the ball on this. And I know this personally because, like I said, I have done numerous cases in Long Island for sex trafficking, and these sites are still up. And one of them, you can go on now, it's Babylon Escorts. They not only sell the women, but they star rate them. It's insanity. And it's a shame because, this girl was on the call for 22 minutes with 911. She was asking for help. Now, listen, anybody knows Gilgo Beach and Long Island, that area, a cop call could have responded within that time frame. The fact that...
Yeah. 22 minutes on the phone with them, and no, they weren't able to trace it yet. Some kids playing in a closet at my house 9 years ago, they come and told me immediately, like, stop, I'm done. I'm done with it. Anders and Eek, I'm summoning you guys. If you hear me, Paranormal Rooster, all the people that aren't here, I'm summoning you guys. Bad Girl said all of these cases of corrupt law enforcement and so many failed victims. Absolutely. And that's what's important, to remember the failed victims. Kara said, I used to go to Gilgo all the time. At night, you need to drive with your high beams on that road just to see correctly. This happened in the winter. At night, she was on rugs. Plus, if she fell and knocked herself out, that could be why she drowned too. Right. And that's possible, but I just don't know how they determined that from skeletal remains. And I don't think, if we take into account all the other people that were found there and the 911 call, I just don't see it as an accidental death. That's just me personally, but I just don't get it. The Google machine says you can do a tox screen from bone marrow if all that is left of a person is skeletal remains. Okay, thank you for that. So maybe that's how they found out possible drug overdose. Hey, Norma, thank you so much for being here. Norma says, morning, everyone. And Michelle says, I'm back. What did I miss? Oh, yeah, Eek's okay. I was just summoning her because I didn't see her in Abellis.
fact that the ball was dropped on so many levels, and the fact that they did not subpoena, and to this day still haven't subpoenaed the internet sites that all 5 of these women were on. And the sad thing is that the records stay on these sites between 6 and 8 years. The ghost image stays on their hard drive up to 10 years. That evidence is still there, and it has not been researched, and it is a shame.
Dr. Keith Taylor, your thoughts about what's going on here with the investigation, because that's the other part of this story. I mean, if it's not for John Ray, this thing just gets swept under the rug, and it's just another prostitute. Nobody cares. And it just doesn't seem like there was enough effort or some level of perhaps not wanting to find out the truth here.
Well, I think what you see in terms of having a multi-agency task force that includes the FBI and the sheriff's office and the police department and others, the fact that the department is now dedicating these significant resources to gain more information and utilizing social media, dedicating a website just to this case, speaks to the significance of the past problems with the case. And so there were a myriad number of problems, both with the police department and the decisions that they made in terms of not including the FBI until later in the investigation. But I think that the one thing that may be helpful is the fact that they are continuing this effort to try and reinvigorate this investigation.
All right, our guests are staying with us. We've got more to get to, plus still coming up next hour, we've got more for you on the Murdoch murder case down in South Carolina. Don't go away. In New York City, a bodega clerk is charged with murder after he was attacked by the man he stabbed. Why isn't this self-defense? The think tank weighs in.
What the crap?
It's gonna be great.
Is it?
Today, we are releasing the first piece of new information that will be featured on the website. A significant piece of evidence found at one of the crime scenes along Ocean Parkway. A black leather belt embossed with the letters HM or WH was recovered during the initial stages of this investigation. We believe that the belt was handled by the suspect and did not belong to any of the victims.
So that belt thing they're saying could have possibly belonged to Rex's grandfather. You see the H, and his last name is Hurman. And I can't remember who they found that with, but that was a big piece of evidence.
How big of a clue is that? You've got initials, and like anything else in this case, it could be HM, it could be WH. Let's bring back in our guests, John Ray, Manuel Gomez, Dr. Keith Taylor, Joseph Scott Morgan with us. John, let me ask you, anyone associated with this investigation or from the neighborhood or anywhere else have those initials, HM or WH?
Yes, and we've identified at least 2 people who share those initials to the police. They've not interviewed the persons who have those initials and have been high-profile suspects in this case before. And the police have refused to interview them. Instead, they held press conferences, 2 of them so far, in which they announced facilely that they have all these other people like the FBI and so on actively working on this. That's not true. Nobody has been interviewed in the Oak Beach community since they claimed that they were having this investigation. They wrote off Shannon Gilbert as a tragic accident with no evidence whatsoever. And you'll notice at both press conferences, the key person was missing, and that was the district attorney of Suffolk County. He did not participate in that. I don't think we're being treated in good faith here.
That's weird that the district attorney didn't participate. Kara, I'm so glad that you're out of NYC if all that was going on. And Sarah told us that she, in the Discord, which I'll drop in the description box below after the live. She said, I popped the link for the talk screen information in Discord. I like to show sources. Yeah, can you tell I'm a college student? Yeah, that's awesome, and I appreciate that. So anybody wanting that information can check in the Discord after the live. I'll drop the link in the description box.
I do think there's a serious cover-up, and I never used to say that until recently when I've seen some of these developments. There is a police cover-up here, and it needs to be broken.
Joseph Scott Morgan, if you've got a belt, you've got initials. You've got a lead. Can you get any forensics off that belt? And isn't the most important thing to talk to someone who has the initials HM or WH?
Yeah, you would think that you would begin to narrow things down, and also looking perhaps at the histrionics, associated with about the point of origin. I think from a forensic standpoint, from whence was this belt created? Was it at a shop? Is it a custom belt? Is it something that is unique to that particular area? Or is it something that can be purchased anywhere and perhaps had the letters placed upon it at a later date? Was it something that was specifically constructed? And also, you begin to think about dimensions here, Ben. Belts are made for specific waist sizes. Who actually fits in to these parameters relative to the inches of this belt? Who's using this thing to hold their pants up, or who's using it to commit a crime with?
Dr. Keith Taylor, why wouldn't you speak to everyone or anyone with those initials?
Well, you may be developing additional information that you want to prepare before you talk to them. You want to make sure that you have the right questions lined up. And so, the case needs to be treated with the seriousness and care that these humans who were murdered deserve. So, it is certainly my hope that there will be additional interviews of these individuals mentioned.
They do deserve dignity, and it appears as though they were not getting it. Now, at this time, they did not know that Rex Heuermann was the prime suspect, so we're going to watch a video on him in just a second.
As part of their investigative efforts.
Manuel Gomez, do you think the bottom line here is that it's not being taken seriously because of who the victims are, or because who the suspects are?
I believe, like Mr. John.
It must be on Court TV. I don't have a dog here, so I'm assuming that it's on Court TV at Rebel Ramada. Kara said Rex Heuermann is also allegedly linked to missing women from the 70s and 80s at Bethpage State Park. Right. There's a connection between his brother that lived in South Carolina, I think. There's a lot of connections. Like, I could deep dive this case all day if I had time.
John Ray said this has been a police cover-up. It's not being taken seriously because of the victims, who they are. And I disagree with this gentleman. The police were obligated to investigate everybody within that area, and no one did. And the fact that they didn't shows the egregious behavior that has been conducted and continuously be conducted in this case. And that, again, I believe it's a cover-up. And this lawyer is correct. These people have not done the job. The police department has failed these families on so many levels. And it's because, unfortunately, because they were ladies of the evening. And that is my professional opinion on this case.
John Ray, we have about 20 seconds left. I want to give you the final word tonight. What's it going to take to get an answer here?
What it's going to take is that Rodney Harrison, the police commissioner of Suffolk County, has got to break the blue wall and stop the nonsense with the police department's cover-up. It is a definite, willful cover-up. As I said, the key players, such as the district attorney, have not even been brought into the investigation. The FBI has been brought in a very thin, narrow way, and the sheriff's department is kind of like just addressing. They're not investigating. They refuse to do it. You have to wonder why. And the same police officers who were in this case in the beginning are still there, and some of them have been compromised and certainly not least some of the head people in the homicide department. They've got to break.
We're out of time, John. I hate to cut you off, John.
Okay. Hello, D Fank B. D Fank B says, I grew up on Long Island. Cops in Suffolk and Nassau counties notoriously corrupt. I know the Gilgo Beach and surrounding areas very well. Wow. That's interesting. Hold on just a minute. Let me get my playlist pulled back up. We're going to hear from a girl that met him and she had a feeling that she should leave the situation. And then we're going to hear about some of the parties and things that he had at his house. First, we're going to look at, so we understand Shannon Gilbert and some of the people who were unalived there. Now we're going to hear about Rex Heuermann, the person that they think did this. So we'll watch. This one was the one I just saw. And they've got information on the Asian John Doe too in this. I've got that in the playlist. We'll look at that as well.
Beach in 2010. When investigators started the search, instead of finding Shannon, they came across body after body after body on a strip of beach on Long Island. It began with the Gilgo 4, then more victims, eventually totaling 10, until Shannon's remains were finally found on another nearby beach. Then, 13 years later, an arrest for the murders of the Gilgo 4, but not for the murder of Shannon Gilbert.
So that tells us right there that it took them 13 years to find Rex Heuermann. However, when a new task force was assigned to the case, they found him almost immediately. And that goes back to what Dee says. Heuermann was friends with cops and Burke. Absolutely. And a lot of people think that it's a whole cover-up between the police department and Rex Heuermann, who was a well-known architect, made lots of money. And that they basically had this thing going on where they would have parties and do these things. Allegedly speculating.
Tonight, the attorney representing the family of Shannon Gilbert reveals new information linking the accused serial killer to Shannon's murder. But first, more explosive allegations involving another one of the victims, Karen Vergata, connecting her to the accused killer. A swinger party at the accused killer's house with a cop, a witness, Karen Vergata, the accused killer, and his wife. Tonight, we continue our investigation of the Long Island serial killer. I'm Vinny Paul.
Now, I'm going to tell you about Rex Heuermann. He is a very tall man. I think he's like 7 foot. Very big. He is very imposing. He would not be easy to escape from.
Paulton, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you with us. This should be a fascinating, eye-opening hour as we take
Norma, it is absolutely horrible.
a look at the case of the Long Island serial killer. Let's begin with the accused killer. I mean, how much do we really know about him? It's not a ton. It's not a ton. And I think every time we learn something new, it becomes somewhat surprising. But what we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is the most surprising of any revelation or allegation involving this man that we've seen so far in this case. Granted, the fact that he's a serial killer, obviously, that's the baseline. Like, we know that already, but finding out those other details about him and his life and allegations. Big question that still is out there also is how many victims are there, right? How many victims are there that are linked to him of the bodies that were found? You know, how many is he responsible for, according to investigators? Are there bodies somewhere else that haven't been found? These are questions that are still lingering and will continue to linger probably for a long time. Happens in a lot of cases with serial killers. Have they told us everything? Are they hiding anything? Are there more victims out there? A lot of unanswered questions. With one of the women who was found, one of the victims who was found, Karen Vergata, I think the question, something we're going to look at tonight, is there a link between her and this accused killer? This is significant, and this is going to be the first part of our discussion tonight. And this is the
Kara said, I'm not sure if it's still on YouTube, but somebody interviewed him and said that he was extremely intimidating and had a scary aura to him. Rubber thinks that the wife knew more. I don't know. I think she might have, because it always happened when she was out of town, but that could be a coincidence. That could actually just be a coincidence, because if you're trying to hide it from your wife, when would you do these things? Well, obviously when she leaves town. Kara said this was before he was apprehended. And True Crime Addict said he is 6'4", very tall. Thank you for that. I do think his children are innocent victims as well.
The one where we were like, really? Really? For several reasons. And it's because it involves an alleged wild swingers party at the house, at the accused killer's house. Okay, not like abducting someone or, no. Swinger party at his house, one of the victims there. Now, let me give you a little background about this case for those of you who forgot. The police completely botched this from the beginning purposely, the police chief who was in charge of this investigation. So it was sluggish from the beginning. It was difficult to get any sort of traction. Investigators weren't doing their job of investigating for various reasons. But on a side note to that is the fact that these victims and their families were looking for help. And one person who stepped in is the attorney for the family of Shannon Gilbert and other victims in the case. John Ray is his name. He is the one who revealed these new shocking allegations. Take a listen.
Dee said, Gilgo Beach is, there we go. Gilgo Beach is not to rule to triangulate cell locations. It's a major summer beach area, Jones Beach. Very busy during the daytime, Wi-Fi available. Suffolk police is why everything stalled, 100%. That, from what I've heard, you're accurate. True Crime says you need to see the art his daughter creates. It's scary. Oh, wow. That's interesting. I'll take a look at it.
This is a witness who has every reason to have no bias, no interest in the case whatsoever. She was not a sex worker, is not a sex worker, and instead, back in the 90s, in the 1990s, she was what is known then and now as a swinger. She would have a sex partner, and they would go to certain sex clubs in New York City where they would switch partners with other people of like kind. One of the most important places that they would go was called La Trapeze on West 27th Street in New York, right near Rex Heuermann's office. And this was a notorious place for swapping, for switching partners. The couple went to La Trapeze, and I think it was on the wall at La Trapeze where an advertisement was placed to go to a house in Massapequa Park for partying, for switching, for swapping. They ended up going to Rex Heuermann's house. In the house was the wife of Rex Heuermann and Rex Heuermann and the other girl. The other girl who we believe to be Karen Vergata.
Jaw-dropping, right? Let's get into it. Joining me tonight in New York, the attorney representing the family of Shannon Gilbert, John Ray, is back with us. Also with me, former New York State Senator Phil Boyle and psychologist Reese.
This story is interesting from this girl, and we're going to hear more about. I'm trying to kind of introduce you to Rex Heuermann and some of the weird things that is about his aura.
Researcher, expert on violent crime, and author of the book, The New Evil, Dr. Gary Brucata is with us. And finally, in Portland, Oregon, psychotherapist, author of The Minds of Mass Killers, Siobhan Scott, is with us. Welcome to everyone. First thing I want to do, stand by. John, walk us through a few more of these details. We're at the point now. So you found a witness. So this witness has this information. So who is going to this swinging club? Where do they go? What are the circumstances of ending up at the accused killer's house?
What the witness says is that La Trapeze, which is notorious for, it's a swingers club.
Dee does have some very valuable insight, and I appreciate you sharing. Dee says, "My pleasure. I spent my youth there. I know the area and police unfortunately well." Yeah, I appreciate the insight there that about what it's like at nighttime and things like that. That is very valuable in this case, and I appreciate you sharing.
They even have, you belong as a member. And to go in there, you have to have a partner, and to leave, you have to leave with the same partner. She would go there with her partner, who was a New York City police detective, and she would go where she said there were quite a few other police officers who were swingers who were there. I've had that confirmed by other witnesses from La Trapeze. She would go and there on celebratory dates such as Valentine's Day or Halloween and the like, or right around those dates anyway. And in this instance, she went with him to the place in Massapequa Park that had been revealed or advertised in La Trapeze. But they went with, in the back seat, a young girl who was hungry and disheveled, and took her with them. Now, how they came to have that girl, the witness doesn't really know for sure how her driver partner had come to have this girl, but he had her.
Kara also was from the area and giving us insight as well, and thank you as well, Kara. I'm sorry for not mentioning you as giving us insight, and I appreciate your insight as well. Thank you so much. Anders says, Dr. Gary Brushaw has scored Rex on the very top of his evil scale. That's the person who's talking. I probably slaughtered his last name. Yeah. Thank you guys that have been in the area. I really appreciate you sharing your insight and thoughts on this, because it does help a lot. Oh, yeah, you don't stay long in one of those bars if you go in by accident. That's for sure.
And the peculiar thing that she mentions, the witness mentions, is that this girl is leaning over in the back seat and bent over towards one side, bent over. What she didn't know, this witness, is that Brigada had just been recently in a car accident that had disabled her back. So that little fact was an interesting fact. Anyway, they go out to Massapequa. Before they get there, they stop at a gas station, and the young girl, who we now believe is Brigada, tells them that she's worried about doing this, and she's reassured, don't worry, the partner sitting here, he's a cop. You have nothing to worry. You're in the hands of a cop. So they went there to the house, and the partner went with Uerman. And apparently the swinging goes both ways in terms of sex.
Could you imagine that, being in the back seat of a car, like, on a date with somebody, or, you're dating somebody that's into that type of stuff, you're afraid, and they're like, no need to be afraid. You're in the hands of a police officer, and then something horrific happens. And we'll see what happened in just a minute. Oh, wow. That's one of those things, Kara. Kara says, I was so shocked that I heard one of the victims lived in my town. I had to dig out my yearbook to see if I went to high school with her. That's scary. Or like if you found out somebody you actually did know in school, or a loved one, I couldn't imagine.
So you're saying the detective and the man who's been accused of being the serial killer go off together, the two men, and Karen Brigada, who stayed there with your witness, and who else was there?
It's not clear that Vergata stayed with the witness. It appears that she also went downstairs. So she may have been part of the tryst. I don't, with Huerman. I don't know. She didn't know. She remained upstairs with Mrs. Ellerup, with Åsa Ellerup, and she offered Ellerup sex, and Ellerup declined. The witness believes she declined because the witness is African American, but we don't know.
And has she seen pictures of Asa? Has the witness seen recent pictures of her? And did she still say, "Oh, that's the one who was there that night"?
Yes, she's seen all the pictures that have been on TV, and so that's an interesting question. Does it create a source of great imagination to come up with this story that may not be true? You have to test that credibility of that. And you have to look for corroboration, of course.
So what basically they're saying is that there was a witness there that night that stated they were also at the party. They saw the cop go in with Rex. They saw this other girl there that was there with the cop. The witness that's speaking now in this time period said that on that day back in the 90s, the person who is I think she's missing, sat down on a couch beside her, and the witness offered to take her to a room and have relations, and the girl was like, "No, that's okay, I'm good," or whatever. And the girl that was like, "No, that's okay, I'm good," is now missing or possibly deceased, and she remembered seeing her there that night in the 90s.
The credibility for approximately 9 hours, 3 hours, and then 3 hours again, and then another 2 hours and an hour with the police department, an hour and a half with the police department. Detectives who sat with her and examined her in my presence. So, that was vetted as far as you could vet, and that.
True Crime Addict said, in my opinion, I believe Peter Hackett was at the house with Shannon. I definitely think there was more people there. I was trying to find a clip, and, I don't know if it's true or not. Supposedly it's not, but I found it interesting. There's a clip out there somewhere that states that Shannon met Rex Huerman at a hotel before the night she disappeared, and that she freaked out at the hotel and she ran outside for whatever reason. And she left and she got away because she was scared because of whatever happened in the hotel room that night. Well, then you fast forward, I think it was a year or two later, she's at this house party calling 911 and then disappears. So I remember questioning if she saw Rex Huerman in that house, or maybe it was Peter Hackett in that house, and remembered them from the motel room and freaked out and started running and was like, "No, you're trying to kill me." Because evidently something happened so bad in that hotel room that she ran out again for her life. So maybe somebody was trying to unalive her. She sees that person at the party that night and is like thinking everybody's trying to unalive her again. And so she takes off running. I can't find that clip though. I'll try to find it before we go for the day.
Now the corroboration need to take place. But many of the things that this woman said, you would say that the core of everything she said, stretching her mind back, 27 some odd years, was there. And, the details that she gave that she could remember, they all seem to be verified, checked out. So
now,
far.
We're at the house, not us, but they're at the house. Okay. I'm going to clear that up, right? What happens? Like what happens of note to her, I guess by the end of whatever takes place between the accused killer, the police officer, and maybe Karen Vergata?
Well, the witness says that she became annoyed, the witness, because her partner had disappeared with Rex and didn't come back. So she began to call out for him, and she was given a drink as well by Miss Ellerup. So she went looking for him, and he emerged, and it's not clear to me whether he came from downstairs or he came from a back room. That's not clear, but he emerged, and she ended up having sex with Huerman as well, She remembered it. She recalled it as she was telling the story, and but beyond that, the details are a little unclear. At one point, Uerman leaves the premises, goes out in the backyard, and starts a fire in a big vat, or a big canister of some kind. And it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, which upset the witness because the witness said, "Hey, this is going to attract the police." But in any event, the tryst ends. She leaves with her partner. But the interesting fact that she tells us is that when she arrived at the premises, they were driving the partner's car. When they left in a different vehicle that was on the premises. So that would suggest that the partner and Uerman knew each other beforehand. To be able to switch cars on the premises.
Has she been able to identify this officer? So do you know who he is? Has she revealed that name?
Unequivocally, she's identified. I know his name. I know his history. We know a great deal about him. So we know.
And was he involved in the investigation of the Long Island serial killer?
No, he was not at all. And think about it. This is a woman who's willing to come forward, make these statements. Her memory's not going to be perfect, stretching back that long, but the core is there, and she does so under oath, where she knows she's punishable by penalties of perjury in a very important case, and does not want to have her name revealed or her identity, and isn't looking for anything.
Right, so that would make me think that this witness is telling the truth. We have to be careful because some people will say things or do things just to get out there and be in the public and be known, but I don't think that you would go to the extent of saying that you were involved in these things and did these things and all of that, and you're not asking for money or anything like that. You're legitimately trying to help out. I believe her. That's just me personally, though.
Or, to be famous, to get movie rights, to make money, that sort of thing. So she there's a lot of reasons to say that her story has credibility. And these little details that just, how do they get in there if they're not true? They're kind of odd.
And they leave without Vergata, and they see Vergata as they are leaving, right? And she's running from the house?
Yeah, what happens is when they first get in the vehicle, she sees Vergata through the window, and she says Vergata looks very upset. So she says to her friend, why are we leaving without her? And the friend tells her words to the effect that, don't worry, they're just playing a game. There's nothing, no problem.
So she sees the girl looking very upset. They came there with her. They leave without her. And I think this is the cop. I could be wrong, but I think it's the cop driving. And the cop's like, don't worry about it. They're just playing a game. But she's running naked in the yard, screaming, and so is everybody else. And she goes missing.
Then the girl runs out of the house somehow, naked. And I mean, this is in February, and runs past the garage. So you can see where that is in the picture. And she now the witness gets upset again and says, wait a minute, why are we leaving her behind? And she's told, don't worry, she's running. It's just a game they're playing. It's not a problem. So they leave, and she was uneasy about it, but didn't do anything and didn't think about it again for years until this thing crops up and she sees Vergata on television, which causes her to have an emotional breakdown because she recognizes her and says, that's the girl we left behind.
Wow. All right, let me bring in my guest, get a little bit of analysis here. Dr. Gary Brucata, I'll start with you. Your thoughts about this alleged behavior, this witness's account, does that strike you as something consistent or viable or potentially truthful in the life of someone accused of what this man's accused of doing?
In men who commit serial sexual homicide, which is what is being accused here, it's not unusual to see individuals using every trick in the book to find ways to go out trolling for victims. And what they sometimes do is go into populations where people are open to out of the ordinary sexual activities as a way of kind of feeling out that they can isolate a person for an encounter without the person knowing that it's.
So this picture right here that you see on the right side of your screen is Rex Heuermann buying a burner phone that he thought couldn't be traced. And from what I understand, those burner phones is how he was meeting the girls.
That it's going to progress to violence, because the whole idea is you need to, number one, be able to seek out people who have a very particular look to fit your psychosocial needs in the fantasy. But then you also need to be able to isolate the person in a way that has a kind of cover story to it.
This picture is one of the ones he had professionally done because he was some kind of like really good architect in Manhattan.
She was doing there, what we were really going to do, so that the whole thing is sort of methodically planned out, I think, to have a pool in which to fish for victims.
Siobhan Scott, what's your reaction to these allegations?
Well, it's horrifying, but millions of people engage in unconventional sexual behavior and what society considers acceptable fluxes over time and in different subcultures. But this kind of sex club environment, because it is more open, I think it's likely to provide a fertile field for people with paraphilias that can potentially be predatory and very dangerous. So it seems plausible.
Wow. All right, Phil Boyle, let me ask you, this is a case that obviously has a history of some bad behavior by police. The allegation here is that it is possible that this detective was kind of hanging and running around in circles with the man now known as the accused Long Island serial killer. Your reaction tonight?
Well, Vinny, I'm glad to see it wasn't a member of the Suffolk County Police Department, which has been part of the problem in the leadership at the beginning of this investigation. This is NYPD, evidently. But one thing that struck me, what John Ray was saying, was a description. So if you had a normal possible suspect, right, from 20 years ago, if a young woman said, no, I remember them, they were 5'11", dark hair, whatever, it could be anybody. But Rex Heuermann's physical description, we all know, is very, very unique. 6'4", 240. When you see the pictures of him in the perp walk, and he's towering over all the police officers.
Right. That was the thing that stood out to so many people. He is a very recognizable person. He's 6'4", 225 pounds, they stated. He is very identifiable by his height, by the way he looks. He's scary looking.
Just around him. So if you're going to remember someone from 20 years ago, it's going to be this guy. I believe the boyfriend of one of the victims described him as ogre-like, and that's basically what his physical description is. So I think it lends a lot more credence to this young woman's testimony.
Absolutely. Great point. We can't forget, this guy doesn't really blend into a crowd that much. Okay, our guests are staying with us. All right, we talked about...
Hey, Jen Finn. Thank you for being here. Jen Finn said, ooh, disgusting. Rex Heuermann is disgusting. He is. He is very distinct looking. Pinto said he's scary. Bad Girl said he is very distinct looking. And Jen Finn said, yes, ogre-like. Exactly. Yes. Thank you for being here, Jen Finn. I'm going to drop the StreamYard link in just a second. I'm just letting you know what that link is in case anybody had wanted to come up. The offer's there just in case you want to do that.
About Karen Vergata. When we come back, we're going to talk about Shannon Gilbert and her potential link to the accused Long Island serial killer before she disappeared. Plus, coming up next hour. In Moscow, Idaho, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students says the charges against him should be dismissed. And tomorrow in court, Judge is expected $1,000.
The state believes this defendant has evidenced her capacity to take advantage.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me. Where are you? There's somebody after me. Okay, where are you? There's somebody after me. Where are you, ma'am? I don't know. No, stop it, please. Stop it, please. Please stop it. Please stop it. No, stop it. Please stop it. No.
Let me fix that.
Please stop it. No, please stop it.
people are plotting to kill me.
That's the 911 call from Shannon Gilbert that started the whole investigation that uncovered this serial killer in Long Island.
So they find out she's on the phone with the police. Joseph Brewer says, get her out of here. She says, they're trying to kill me. And Michael Pack is like, ha, 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 shut up. I don't think so. I don't think so. Why isn't Michael Pack being questioned more? Would be my question. Kara let us know that she dropped the Long Island Serial Killer podcast in Discord. So I do appreciate you doing that. Jen Finn said that her call is so sad, and it is. And again, I would like to ask anybody coming in to please remember the victims in this case and say a prayer for them today. Do you all think it was Rex or a fluke that led them to her and the bodies? I think Rex unalived Shannon, and I think Shannon is an unsung hero because of her. That's how they were found, and hopefully the Long Island serial killer is no longer out there committing crimes. I do believe it is Rex Heuermann. But you guys let her know in the comment section, and me as well, what you think. If you're watching this on replay, let us know in the comment section as well what you think. I would love to know.
Island. But Shannon Gilbert has not been directly linked to that killer. That was when she disappeared. They went looking for her. They found a whole bunch of other victims, but so far they have not connected Shannon Gilbert's murder to the Long Island serial killer. Now, I want to show you an affidavit from a taxi driver, female taxi driver, and this incident predates the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert. Here's what the taxi driver is saying. I was told by the dispatcher that the prospective passenger had asked for a female driver and that she locked herself in the bathroom in the room at the motel. A very large man came out. He appeared to have a big belly. He ran to the side street. He tried to block his face and arms. Then a girl ran out. She was petite. She was crying and shaking. She said he placed a thick white envelope on the nightstand of the room. She said the envelope was filled with cut up paper. She said he shook her and that he was aggravated. So she ran into the bathroom and locked herself in. I saw her on TV where she was identified as Shannon Gilbert. Shannon Gilbert. Big guy. Let's bring back in our guest, John Ray, the attorney representing Shannon Gilbert's family, Phil Boyle, Dr. Gary Brucata, and Siobhan Scott. All right, John, do we know the time frame of this? Like, how close in time is this, what happened at this motel, to the time when Shannon Gilbert made that 911 call?
The witness is not certain of the exact date, but she puts it in a range of approximately October of 2009 up to December of 2009, which is within months of when Shannon disappears.
And does this taxi driver identify the man who's now accused of being the serial killer as that big, large man who came out?
So this is going to talk about the hotel.
The witness identifies that big man as Rex Heuermann. He was trying to cover his face with his arms, putting them up in this fashion to block as he ran. And he entered into what she recognized as I think it was a green and blue, sort of, I don't know what you would call it, but SUV, truck, something. And he got in there, but she was able to see him because she had, he ran out into her lights. So she identifies him that way.
So this is saying, this is the story behind the hotel room. So they're saying that a taxi driver was called, okay, and Shannon Gilbert was in the room with Rex Heuermann, and the taxi driver saw her run out and come and jump into the taxi cab. Rex Heuermann runs out after her and then gets in his vehicle, which is a green SUV. They did find out that his brother had a green SUV, or either he and his brother both had a green SUV, but I know his brother definitely did. And they state that he might have been using it, or I think he had it, but he sold it to the brothers a couple of years back. That was the connection between Shannon and Rex Heuermann. Now, we know that that incident took place, or supposedly per this witness. And if that took place, then she's at the party with Joseph Brewer, and she sees Rex Heuermann again. Of course, she's going to take off running, because she's like, that's that man that tried to kill me that night in the hotel room. I got to get out of here. And, you know, then we get the 911 call. Supposedly she drowned herself or did it to herself in the bog, all of that. Kara said it was Rex. Women who also worked with him came forward with odd things he'd say and do. Jen is reminding that the panel link is available. Thank you so much, lovely Jenny Jen. And Jen Finn said, yes, I saw the lady that went on a date with him and Rex talk about Gilgo Beach. SK, very odd dinner conversation. Yep, we're going to play that video next. And thank you for bringing that up, Jen Finn.
But remember, she sees him again.
Right. So let's talk about the second time that she sees the accused killer, the same female taxi driver.
Yes. In this instance, which she's not sure of the exact stretch of time, you know, whether it was a few days or a few weeks later, she gets a call from her dispatcher to go pick up somebody named Matt by a bar or at a bar over in what could have been Ronkonkoma, could have been Bohemia, which is, you know, off the Long Island Expressway. And she goes to pick up Matt, and she's given a destination, as all drivers have been. Matt pops up out of on the side of the street when she pulls up on the side street, and he's wearing a camouflage jacket with what she thinks is a t-shirt underneath it, and a lanyard with what looks like a police placard of some kind. And he comes to the car and gets in the car and sits in the middle and leans over, you know, with his arms up, and tells her that they're going to go and take the girl, a woman who was in the window of the adjoining house on the other side of this very narrow street, going to take him for a long ride in the woods. As soon as she hears this, and the guy seemed to be extremely agitated, she says, I'm not going, because he had changed the destination, and she knows from, you know, training, when they change the destination, you don't go. So she said no.
This one was odd too, about I want to take you on a long ride into the woods. Hey, Shaboogies, thank you for being here, lovely.
He wouldn't go. He got very angry. He became argumentative. At one point, she said to him, you know, would you talk to your mother like that? And he said, my mother is dead. He raged it out. We checked, by the way, to see if Heuermann's mother was dead. She was not. Then he has a handgun, and he cocks the handgun and basically says, you know, I just give me a reason to kill you. I already want to kill you. And she argues and says, look, you can have my keys. She turned off the car. Said, you can have my keys, you can have my money, you can have whatever you want. But I am not driving anywhere. So the dispatcher comes over the radio and starts saying frantically, you know, we know you're there, we know who you are, you know, get out of the car. And meanwhile, the girl could be seen in the window right next to the car. So Heuermann gets out of the car. And she drives away, but she encounters a police officer coming right down that street. So she assumes that 911 had been called and he's coming. He has his lights off, and he's cruising very slowly down the street. She encounters him. They talk, and she tells them, listen, one of your own is back there. He's having a bad day. She says that because when she was in the car, she says to the guy, because of the lanyard, are you a cop? And he says, yes. She says, from where? And he says, Brooklyn. That's where the other guy came from, the detective. The detective was from... He worked in the Brooklyn area.
From Brooklyn. All right, Dr. Gary Brucata, your analysis...
What would you guys do if somebody jumped in your car and was like, you know, or, you know, the situation happened and there was a person in your car saying, drive to the woods, we're going on a long drive. Would you do what she did? I think I would try to. I mean, it would be scary if somebody was like, I got a pew-pew, just give me a reason to unalive you. I think I would still say, look, you can take whatever you want to, but I'm not driving to the woods. Shabugi said, this lawyer pisses me off. Remember the press conference where he tried to implicate the daughter? Yeah, we've talked about that some, but I haven't gone into it yet.
Of this behavior that we're hearing from these two incidents at the motel with the fake money in the envelope, and then trying to get a female taxi driver to take him and another woman into the woods.
All of this is entirely consistent with somebody that has extremely specific needs to fulfill a sexual fantasy. And there is absolutely nothing in any of these stories that is shocking to me, because I've heard everything under the sun in terms of the ploys that are used by people who are generally narcissistic, psychopathic, sadistic, to lure people to precisely where they need them to be to play out those particular fantasies. We also know that people of this type, who generally begin their offenses in their late 20s, don't really stop. And over time, almost in a blueprint fashion, keep repeating an offense over and over and honing it so that it almost takes on a kind of a mechanical quality in the attempt to perfect that fantasy. And so I would imagine that we can tell an awful lot from the little glimpses of MO that may have been seen here, and little glimpses of signature and psychological elements glimpsed here about other crimes that may have happened. I was particularly fascinated as a psychologist to hear the little lie about his mother being dead. I don't think it takes a Freudian to interpret what is interesting about that particular lie in that moment, and what that may say about the origins of a person's misogyny. But I think that there is nothing shocking here at all. No.
Siobhan Scott, do you think if they took that ride, there'd be 2 more dead women?
Yeah, kudos to that taxi driver for thinking. I mean, that's, as a female, I can say that's a chilling scenario.
I agree. I think we'd have 2 more victims here if they had drove.
But yeah, it seems like this is a person who was compulsive, driven, bold, confident, and the allegations of possible connections with law enforcement are also chilling.
Phil Boyle, let me ask you, how confident are you with this information and people coming forward that the investigation that is happening now of this accused killer will really take a look at everything and try to get some sense of justice for all the victims in this case and consider this evidence?
Yeah. Well, I give credit to John Ray for bringing these women forward. I hope that they go to law enforcement, are interviewed by the task force, by the Gilgo Beach Serial Task Force, to add their voices, because, as you know, I mean, they're charging Mr. Human with only 3 murders as of right now. He's a prime suspect with Ms. Brainerd Barnes' death, but there's also at least 6 other victims there, if not more. And we all know how this investigation was bungled at the beginning from the hierarchy of the Suffolk County Police Department, and as the doctor knows, and we all know, people usually don't, as if they're a serial killer, they probably don't stop acting on these fantasies for 10 years. So there could be several other victims out there, and thank God these young women were not. But I hope that, again, that the women that have given this testimony go to the law enforcement and the Gilgo Beach Serial Killer Task Force to add their names, and they can add this to the investigation.
I mean, this is like jaw-dropping information.
I wonder if they would actually take it as credible, would be my concern.
And really appreciate everyone coming on tonight. John Ray, always great to see you. I know your time is valuable. Thank your client for us, please, as well. Phil Boyle, thank you. Dr. Gary Brucato, unbelievable. Siobhan Scott, you guys know what you're talking about, and every time I have you on, I learn something new, so thank you all so much. When we come back, folks, we're going to bring in the attorneys representing the accused killer's wife and the attorney representing the children to get.
So there's his wife all the way on the right, and then his two children, his daughter and his son, right there in that picture. Yeah, they're going to go to commercial. Hold on just a minute. I wonder if that was the wife. No, I don't think it is. Maybe. I'll just let this commercial play so we can see who it is. Yeah, I think it might be.
Or TV.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your eardrums.
How are you holding up? I know you can't talk about the case. How are you holding up?
So this is his wife.
What you see, right? It is what it is.
How's your children doing?
Not doing those in that one. Not going there.
Have you spoken to your husband?
And I'm not going there either. That's already been, his lawyer has already answered that question.
How are you getting through the day with media and with all the questions? I know it must be tough.
Moment by moment, not hour by hour, moment by moment.
From what I remember, if I remember correctly, the son was hers from a previous marriage, and then they have the daughter together. And yeah, I think the son is special needs.
And that's another big part of this case that we've been talking about is, a family that's thrown into the middle of all of this. And, you didn't ask for this.
I agree. It was a weird thing to say. It is what it is, right? But what do you say to those kind of people who are slaughtering you and putting you in the news regardless of whether you're actually guilty or not? I'd probably say it is what it is too.
You're placed in the middle of this incredible storm and fire. The good news for Asa and for the children out there, represented by strong, incredible attorneys who are joining us tonight in New York. On the phone, the attorney representing the accused killer's children, Ves Mitev, is back with us, and the attorney representing his estranged wife, Asa Ellerup, Bob Macedonio, is with us. Guys, appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you so much. I just want to take a moment because we talked about this alleged party that happened at the home, and I want to read from a part of the.
Oh, I didn't mean to pause it there, but Kara said it's weird, but I think she's tired of being harassed. Right. And Sarah said it's absolutely possible to be with someone for many years and not know that they're doing awful things. Yes, absolutely. It reminds me of the movie Gothica. That's another good one where she was with somebody and had absolutely no idea. Yep.
Of the affidavit of this witness / swinger. She said, RW and I chose to go there to the Heuermann home in February 1996. Asa told me words to the effect that Rex brought her from her country and that everything she had, he has given to her. She said that she was lucky that he was rich. She also said she was afraid of Rex. So that's part of the affidavit. The other part is that there was some wild swinger party at the home that night, including one of the victims being there. So let me begin with you, Bob. Any reaction from Asa to these allegations by this witness who has come forward?
Bad Girl says, but there's victims and their families suffering. I'd at least acknowledge them, right? Asa is I don't know about that. I don't know. People can compartmentalize, especially if they have antisocial personality disorder and similar disorders, and his family was caught off guard. I don't know about that. I'd have to look that up to verify that. The other, what y'all are saying in comments.
Well, I would tell you, categorically denies them. They are a complete figment of Johnny Ray's imagination and or the witness that he may have had through that affidavit. In February of 1996, Asa Ellerup would have been pregnant with her daughter, Victoria. So it makes no rational sense. It didn't happen. This is the third victim that John Ray is trying to attach to his victims and or his pursuit of a financial windfall from this case. We've had him attached former police commissioner James Burke. We've had him attached the former businessman James Bissett. Now this is the third and hopefully the final attempt by John Ray's participation in this figment of his imagination and chasing his tail for the past 12 years.
One follow-up, and I'm not sure on this question. Also, the allegation that Asa was brought to the United States, I guess, from her country by Rex is
completely 100% not true. Asa came to this country when she was 3 years old, and didn't meet Rex until she was 18 years old, working into a 7-Eleven in the local community where they both resided. So that is no basis in truth in it. None. Zero.
All right. That's why we brought you on, Bob. So, Vess, the other part of this story is it's 1996, so it's before I think the children are in the picture. But any reaction from the children to these allegations involving this wild sex swinging, swapping, switching party at the house?
Well, I think Beetlejuice on Howard Stern has a more coherent narrative and an origin story than what we've been hearing.
Regardless of whether it happened or not, it sucks that the kids have to hear about it like this too. Like, how embarrassing would that be as a child for people to be saying that about your parents? But again, also take into consideration what he's been accused of being. So
that makes more sense than what's been trotted out in the papers these last couple of weeks. And I have to point out one thing, when they say affidavits connect Rex Heuermann, affidavits, that word, as you know, means something. It means you swear under oath to tell the truth. But the problem here is we have anonymous witnesses making claims that will never be prosecuted under oath of any kind. So anyone can say anything. Penalties of perjuries abound. These are completely fabricated claims. And they're being trotted out for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to hog the limelight.
So, any reaction though from the children themselves? Have they been paying attention to it? Did they hear it? Do they have any statement that they want to make relative to it?
They're not paying attention to any of this, nor should anyone really that has an ounce of common sense or an ounce of feeling that anything that's being said here is just hokum. So the reaction is, of course, one of contemptuous disdain, because that's all that this merits. And as we said all along, these allegations, they don't even merit a response, and that's the response.
Bob, how's Asa holding up these days? It's been some time now. Are things getting a little easier for her, or is it still a struggle every day?
I wouldn't say they're getting easier. I would say this has become the new normal. After July 13th, life has been turned upside down for herself, Victoria and Christopher. And Bess and I have been working very hard with the family to stabilize them. They're dealing with it. She's going to let this play out in the courtroom, not in the media, not on all these baseless allegations. Almost every single day you hear a new podcast or a new witness come forward or a new Johnny Ray interview making baseless claims like Bess just said. So we've instructed them not to pay attention to them. It's like ripping the scab off a womb every time if you listen to this stuff. So they're trying to move on with their lives, get themselves back to whatever the new normal is going to be, and let this really play out in the courtroom with the evidence and the facts of the case.
And speaking of courtrooms, Bob, do you suspect that she might be a witness in any of this?
I don't suspect, but I don't see what she could possibly be a witness to. There is the task force. If and when we are contacted, she will obviously fully cooperate with any investigation. I don't believe she has any relevant information now.
Yeah, and from what we understand, she was out of town when these things happened. Bad Girl said no one in this case will walk away unscathed, and that's absolutely correct. It really sucks for the kids and family because they are victims too in all of this. I wanted to play the girl. So this is going to be from CNN. This is woman describes being terrified after 2015 date with
Investigators on the Gilgo Beach serial murder case.
the Gilgo Beach suspect. So she's going to tell her story, and we'll listen to that. And we'll listen to another short clip, and then I'll probably have to go for the day. Those kids. Oh, God. I just got a Charlie horse. Sorry, y'all. Sarah said their kids have got to be devastated. In most cases, the families of the accused and convicted are victims too, as well. Yep, as the actual victims. So there's a lot of people. There's a lot of victims here. Oh, really?
Appear to be evidence from the suspect's New York home. Earlier, investigators searched his yard using a canine and ground-penetrating radar. Authorities are also looking to his properties in South Carolina and Nevada. Rex Huerman is charged with murder in the deaths of 3 of the Gilgo 4. The 59-year-old architect is also the prime suspect in the disappearance and killing of the 4th woman, but he hasn't been charged yet in that case. Now, the Gilgo 4 were a group of women whose remains were found near Long Island's Gilgo Beach in 2010. Huerman has pleaded not guilty in 3 of those murders. Earlier, I spoke with a makeup artist and a hair and makeup artist named Nikki Brass. She said she went on a date with the suspect in the summer of 2015. How did you first encounter the man you believe to be the Gilgo killer?
I don't believe it to be him, for one.
You're convinced this is him?
I am convinced. I am 1,000% sure.
Her story's really interesting.
So this guy reaches out to you. Did he say immediately he wanted you to come to his house?
Yes, but the issue was he lives in Nassau County and he was in Massapequa, and I'm not familiar with the area, and I'm very locationally challenged. Like, I need a GPS to go home, and I could live there for 5 years. Like, I'm bad. So I didn't have friends nearby in case anything happened. So I asked him if he would meet me in Port Jeff at the steam room, because in Port Jeff, it's a small town.
It's a restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a small town. I knew the area. I had friends locally.
She worked in that lifestyle at the time as well.
And people nearby that if something were to go wrong, they could be there quickly.
So you do meet with him at the restaurant in Port Jefferson?
Yeah. Well, before I met him, I was at Chuck E. Cheese with my sister. And I had said to her, I showed her a picture. And I said, hey, this is who I'm going out with tonight. If anything happens, this is what he looks like.
So
that's really important for you to do. Anybody going on a date, if you're just meeting somebody, please always do that. Show somebody close to you their dating profile, their photo, their name, because there's a lot of crazy people out here, y'all. And y'all need to be safe.
And I would do that. I would do that for every time I did it, just for my own safety.
No, I think I jumped ahead. So he reached out to you. You asked him for a picture.
Yeah, because I said I wanted to know who I was looking for. I didn't want to show up at a restaurant and be like, who's meeting me here? You know what I mean?
So, and you showed the picture to your sister and gave her the picture.
I didn't give it to her. I showed it to her on my phone. And I said, this is who I'm going to be with. So you know what he looks like and who it is. At the time, we used fake names, so I couldn't give her a name. And then we met. We didn't meet in front of his car or where I could have gotten a plate or a description of it. We met directly in front of the restaurant.
What did you think when you first saw him?
Oh my God, he's massive.
Sarah said she was one of the lucky ones that got out. There is zero shame in SMEC's work, but they often become victims of trafficking and other crimes. They absolutely do. Absolutely.
At the time, I was, 24 years old. I was like 120, 130 pounds, hadn't had kids yet. And he was a gigantic man. Like, I had to look up at him, gigantic. And it wasn't just his height, it was his weight, it was everything. He was just this huge, very overbearing type of weight. Like, he almost carried his weight to intimidate.
And what was he like when you were sitting across the table from him?
So before we sat down, he shook my hand, which I just have to say, there is no reason to have a handshake that firm. Like,
he had a real.
Walks to intimidate. That gives me an idea, of how he walked. Like, even his walk was kind of scary, right? Like, that's scary.
Really strong handshake.
Yeah, like I get that firm handshake to show confidence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But his was like
aggressive, like
an aggressive grip.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Other than that, he seemed normal. He seemed like he told me, hey, well, first of all, right when we sat down, I said hi.
Yes, Anders.
It's nice to meet you. My real name's Nikki. And he just said Rex. He didn't give me a last name or anything. We sat down. He seemed perfectly normal at first. He seemed like your typical guy who was bored with his life, and wanted some kind of excitement. You know what I mean? It didn't get weird until he asked me if I was a true crime fan.
Wait a minute. He asked you if you were a true crime fan.
He asked if I was a true crime fan, and I am. Like, I'm a serial killer buff. I won't even lie. It was when he said, well, do you know about the Gilgo Beach murders?
He actually brought it up.
Yeah, he said, so he has said to me exactly, do you know about the Gilgo Beach murders? And I was like, yeah, I'm from Long Island. Everybody from Long Island knows about them. You know what I mean? And that's when he started talking about it. But here's the thing.
Isn't that interesting? Who brings that up on a first date?
When he brought it up, his whole demeanor changed. He sat up straighter, he had like a smirk on his face. He seemed almost like too excited to talk about it. And then once he did start talking about it, it didn't seem like a true crime fan who just knows information they've seen on TV or read. It seemed like somebody who was reliving it.
That's a weird thing to say. How could you pick up on that? Like, that's scary to think about.
One thing I remember specifically was he said to me, how do you think they get rid of the bodies without going noticed?
You're good, sir.
And I said, I have no clue. I've never been to Gilgo Beach. I don't know the access points. Like, I couldn't tell you anything about it. I have no idea. And he said, what if they treaded through the marsh with the burlap sacks? You would never see them. He's like, it's a very dark and desolate area.
What happened that day?
And that goes back to what we've heard from people that live in the area.
You decide at some point, this is not a good idea.
So after he started talking about everything, he ended it with saying, oh, I live by Gilgo Beach. First of all,
are you kidding me?
I'm not. After telling me all of this, you then tell me you live near Gilgo Beach and it's dark and it's desolate. So that weirded me out enough.
And that's where he wanted you to go, to his house near Gilgo Beach.
Yeah. When I wouldn't go with him, that's when he started seeming visually very agitated, almost like I put in all this work. I came all the way out to Suffolk. I took you to dinner. I met you in public. Why are you not going back with me? Like,
yeah. And that's something that, like, he feels like he bought her. So now he's getting frustrated that she won't leave with him, which is BS.
Like, almost like I owed it to him.
Yep.
And that's when, like, he even though he seemed agitated, he used his like weight and size to almost try to intimidate me even more.
Thank goodness you didn't.
I was terrified. I called somebody to meet me in the parking lot to make sure I got to my car okay.
When you saw the news break and you saw his picture,
like, just sitting down talking to somebody, you are so freaked out that you're going to call somebody and have them be in the parking lot so you can walk to your car. Yeah, he was entitled AF, and it's because of how he views women. It could be. No, she's not hiding her identity, but it could be just to make her look better or something. I don't know. Bad girl.
I immediately texted my little sister and told her to go look at the news. And I said I was right. I knew it. Because after that dinner, for years, I'm telling you, years, I told everybody, I'm telling you, I went to dinner with the Gilgo Beach killer. I know it's him. I went to dinner with him. And I mean, when he got arrested, my sister recognized him. But not only that, it's hard to forget somebody who's like 6'6", 300 pounds, who's an architect in Manhattan and lives in Massapequa. You know, those are very specific details.
So when you saw his image, though, once the news broke, you were like 1,000% that is the guy.
I'm so sure I could sit across from him today and I'd be like, I know you remember me.
Wow.
And if you try saying you don't, like, you're lying. Like, I know he knows who I am.
And this is an important point. You've changed, your life has changed a lot since then.
Yeah. And that's why I came out, and the point I'm making. I don't want to drag my whole history through the mud where everybody knows I'm a former escort or I suffered from addiction or this and that. I want people to realize that I am a mom and a hairstylist and a makeup artist, and I was able to change my life, and these girls weren't. They didn't get the opportunity to get out of that situation. And most people in that situation are vulnerable and desperate and have no other means or outlet or ways to go.
Yeah, and that's a hard place to be in. So just remember that. We should all try not to judge other people.
And that's one reason perhaps he was targeting
Yeah.
you.
I think he targeted women that were less likely to go to police. And that's another reason I'm coming forward, because I feel like there's women out there who probably had a lot more of a dangerous encounter with him than I did and got away, who are too scared to talk about it.
So that's the interview with her. I have a short clip showing how they got the pizza from the garbage can when they collected it, when they found out it was him. How they got his DNA. I'm concerned though, because technically he could fight it and state, well, you don't know that was my pizza crust. But basically he's going to throw this pizza crust away in the trash can, and it's how they get his DNA. So here he is walking up. I thought he had a piece of pizza that he threw away, and there goes the FBI behind him. Okay. Well, they pulled his pizza crust out of that trash can, and were able to get it that way.
Government makes allegations all the time. Sometimes the allegations are true. Sometimes they're not true. Sometimes when they accuse somebody of committing a crime.
Strike. Thank you. Okay. And then real quick, I can show you what that lawyer said about I don't know if I should. I'll show you what the lawyer said about the daughter, but I do want us to remember again that she is a victim in all of this, and I don't believe what he said about her. Bad Girl said, you know what you know. He's not someone you'd forget. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there's so much more we could go into on this, but I do have to go soon. So we'll see. It says Gilgo Beach attorneys accuse Rex Heuermann's daughter of posting disturbing images. So this is going to go back to what y'all been saying about his daughter. But again, please keep in mind that she is a victim in this. Let me make it big, and then I'll play it for you guys. This is going to be from Fox 5.
These images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography.
Hold on. Trigger warning. Okay, can you stop? I'm trying to play.
For those who are unfamiliar, a furry is someone who is an enthusiast for anthropomorphized animal characters, often portrayed in sexualized fashion. A sampling of this person's content can be found on the Twitter account ebchimera_adult. I might add that these images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography, but it depicts various grotesque acts of bestiality. That this person produces grotesque cartoon hentai-style pornography is significant, as it is seemingly the only account with which Victoria has engaged publicly, deeming this person's content worthy of a reblog, and that according to the district attorney, Rex Heuermann himself searched specifically for hentai porn, searches which the DA described as sadistic. While Victoria...
So that's interesting. I hadn't heard that. And yeah, her life is an example that you can recover from addiction and get your life back. Sarah said, I love when people like her come out and speak their story in truth. Thank you, Jen, for offering everybody a trigger warning. Yeah, I don't want to, okay, again, trigger warning. I'm not trying to kink shame. I mean, as long as it's not like snuff films, you know, everybody's into their own type of things. You know what I mean? But it is weird. Like I was gothic and into like, you know, dark things. I practiced Wicca and all that. Not that Wicca's dark, but all of the things like that. I listen to heavy metal, but I've never looked into things like this. But you got to think about a time period right now too. They've got the furries and all of that. So, oh, I know, Sarah, that you meant the lady on TV. I'm just talking.
Victoria's likes on Tumblr are not available for public review. Some counts are. She has chosen not to make hers public. We can look to the list of accounts she follows to inform us as to what kinds of images Victoria is viewing. Upon examination of the roster of accounts Victoria follows on
But I mean, why is that our business?
Tumblr, nearly every account is focused on the circulation of furry art and images. Victoria has a preference for furry pornographic material and dark, macabre art as seen on various accounts. And I'll go into some of these accounts right now. There's Ebony Chimera, a furry porn content creator. NIEH Furry, a furry content and furry porn creator. I Guess I Should Be Thankful, a furry porn and furry content creator who links to a fan fiction account of theirs on a website called Archive of Our Own, which publishes explicit content.
I mean, again, I don't know why we need to know this or that she's into that, because I feel like that's not really our business and you're putting it out here in front of the whole press.
This person's works and bookmarks displays a preference for fan fiction with the self-described themes of graphic depictions of violence, rape, child abuse.
Okay, now that's different, but did she interact with those posts specifically would be my next question. Like if she interacted with those posts specifically, yeah, I got a problem with it. Jen said that daughter of his was strange. Victoria, the girl. Yeah, they want to drag the whole family into the crimes. Yeah, if she's looking at those things like you know, abuse, unaliving, that's curious. But I think she's referencing like the account, one of the accounts she was looking at posted things like that, and not necessarily that the girl was looking at those things specifically. I wonder if Rex had a type of relationship with his daughter of some sort. I think he did, but as a father-daughter role, not anything else.
Strangulation, underage prostitution, asphyxiation, and rough sex. Squeak Squad 524, a blog which describes itself as an art blog of Yiffertons, Yif and its derivations being slang terms used by furries to refer to pornographic content of anthropomorphic animal characters. Lilera, the account from which most of these images come, and it's an account which circulates disturbing images of gore, violent pornography, and other fetish content.
But was she looking at those things specifically? Jen said, did one of the victims have the wife's hair on her? I'm not sure, but I thought I heard that. Yes, I do remember that now that you say that. One of the victims did have the wife's hair on it. But again, you got to think about you're living in a house with your wife. So she's doing the laundry, things like that. It could have been on his clothes. And I think that was one of the ways of how they got him. Yeah, I don't think there was anything inappropriate with the family and the children. Maybe it is possible, you know, allegedly speculating. Bad Girl said maybe her dad confided into her about his dark thoughts. That's possible. I mean, allegedly speculating. Yes, Jen, transfer.
The content creator describes themselves and their blog and their bio as a gore whore with content warnings, self-described as.
I mean, I got a problem with her smirking about it and thinking it's just so funny. I think this was an intrusion.
Extreme gore, hard vor, violence extreme. Vor being cannibalistic imagery of a victim eaten alive. This is to quote the dictionary, the prey's flesh being ripped, chewed, or bitten, resulting in horrific injuries and often loss of life. According to a translator familiar with Scandinavian languages with whom we consulted, Victoria's account handle Vinan de Madtour may itself be an allusion to eating and consumption, a disturbing reference when considered in the context of the hard vor fetish content Victoria views and follows.
I mean, but again, I need to know that she interacted with those posts specifically, and even at that, it's not like she freaking edited and put out a snuff film. You know what I mean? I think that we're reaching now. That's her personal private stuff that shouldn't have been gone to, but that's just my thoughts and opinions. Yeah, Sarah said this lady is immature AF. That's going to be all for me today. I do appreciate you guys so much coming to hang out with me today when you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me. So I appreciate that so much. I did want to let you guys know that while I was out walking today, I was thinking about Thanksgiving on Thursday. And as long as I'm not like super behind on cooking, I'm going to try to come live and just hang out with you guys for a little bit. And we can watch some crazy news stories for a little bit on Thanksgiving, because I do want to tell you guys Thanksgiving and hope you have a good Thanksgiving with your families. So that is my intent as of right now. If for some reason I cannot do it or I'm behind on cooking, I will let you know. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, please fist bump that like button on the way out. And yeah, let me know your thoughts and comments on this case in the description box. I would love to continue to deep dive this case with you guys, so I'm sure we will talk about it again. Think of one thing we're all grateful for, yes. And please speak to your higher power and ask them to watch over the victims, all the victims, even his family in this, because they're all victims. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys. I love interacting with you in the comments section. I love seeing what you have to say. You're also accepting of other people's thoughts, opinions, and speculations, and I'm really grateful for that. And so I want to tell you thank you for that, and I hope you have the best day ever, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.